The statistic I'm about to tell you about pilot fatigue will shock you. 67% of pilots admit to falling asleep during flights. And what's even more terrifying is that airlines know this and systematically ignore it. On 16-hour flights, more than half of all pilots experience microsleep episodes. And this is creating the most dangerous hidden crisis in modern aviation. While passengers trust their lives to pilots, those same pilots are operating commercial aircraft in states of severe sleep deprivation that would be illegal for truck drivers on the ground. The aviation industry has created a culture where admitting fatigue is career suicide, but flying while exhausted is standard practice. And the consequences are killing people. A comprehensive study by the European Aviation Safety Agency revealed that 67% of pilots admitted to falling asleep during flight operations. But this number only represents pilots brave enough to confess. The real percentage is likely much higher. Microsleep epidemic. Pilots experience 3 to 5 second periods of unconsciousness during critical flight phases, including takeoff and landing. Cognitive impairment. Sleep-deprived pilots show reaction times equivalent to drivers with blood alcohol levels of 0.08%, legally drunk. Memory failures. Exhausted pilots forget critical procedures, miss radio calls, and make dangerous navigation errors. The most terrifying aspect? Airlines know these statistics exist, but continue scheduling practices that guarantee pilot fatigue. Modern airlines scheduling pushes pilots to legal limits that would be considered torture in other industries. A typical long-haul pilot schedule includes 16-hour duty days. From check-in to aircraft shutdown, pilots work shifts longer than most doctors. 4-hour rest periods. Between flights, pilots get minimal rest in cramped crew quarters with constant noise and light. Circadian disruption. Crossing multiple time zones destroys natural sleep patterns, creating permanent jet lag. Back-to-back flights. Pilots often fly multiple sectors with no meaningful recovery time. One pilot described his schedule: London to Hong Kong, 4-hour rest; Hong Kong to Sydney, 6-hour rest; Sydney to Los Angeles. I was a zombie by the third flight, but the schedule was legal. Airlines have created a systematic culture that punishes pilots for admitting fatigue while rewarding those who fly regardless of their condition. Career consequences. Pilots who call in fatigued face disciplinary action, reduced hours, and career stagnation. Financial pressure. Many pilots are contractors or low-wage regional pilots who can't afford to miss flights. Peer pressure. The aviation culture glorifies pushing through fatigue as professionalism. Medical threats. Pilots fear that admitting sleep problems will trigger medical reviews that could end their careers. Internal airline documents show management discussing fatigue abuse, their term for pilots who report being too tired to fly safely. Pilot fatigue contributes to approximately 20% of aviation accidents, but this number is systematically underreported because investigation bias. Crash investigations rarely examine pilot scheduling and rest patterns in detail. Human error classifications. Fatigue-related mistakes are classified as pilot error rather than systemic scheduling failures. Survivor guilt. Pilots involved in incidents rarely admit to fatigue, even when it was a contributing factor. Legal protection. Airlines have legal teams specifically trained to deflect fatigue-related liability. Recent accidents linked to pilot fatigue include approach and landing accidents where well-trained pilots made inexplicable errors during routine procedures. Aviation authorities worldwide have failed to address pilot fatigue because the regulations were written by the airlines themselves. Loophole engineering. Flight time limitations are designed with so many exceptions that they're essentially meaningless. Self-reporting systems. Airlines monitor their own compliance with fatigue regulations. Punishment-based policies. Regulators penalize pilots who report fatigue rather than airlines that cause it. Industry capture. Many aviation authority officials are former airline executives with divided loyalties. The FAA's own studies show that current rest requirements are insufficient, but they refuse to implement meaningful changes due to industry pressure. Modern sleep research proves that current airline scheduling practices create dangerous levels of pilot impairment. Reaction time. After 17 to 19 hours without sleep, performance equals legally drunk driving. Decision-making. Sleep deprivation impairs judgment and increases risk-taking behavior. Memory formation. Exhausted pilots can't form proper memories of procedures and checklists. Attention span. Microsleep episodes occur involuntarily, regardless of pilot willpower. One study found that pilots on typical long-haul schedules showed cognitive impairment equivalent to having consumed 4 to 6 alcoholic drinks. Instead of addressing scheduling problems, airlines are installing technology to monitor pilot alertness. Eye tracking systems. Cameras monitor pilot eye movements for signs of fatigue. Performance monitoring. Computer systems track pilot response times and decision patterns. Alertness testing. Pilots must pass reaction time tests before flights. But these technologies miss the point. They detect fatigue without preventing it. It's like installing breathalyzers in cars instead of preventing drunk driving. Pilot fatigue is a global epidemic affecting every major airline. Asian carriers. Rapid expansion has created severe pilot shortages, leading to extreme scheduling. European airlines. Budget carriers push pilots to absolute legal limits to minimize costs. American carriers. Regional airlines pay pilots so little they work multiple jobs, compounding fatigue. Middle Eastern carriers. Rapid growth and 24/7 operations create impossible scheduling demands. The problem is worst in developing aviation markets where regulations are weak and enforcement is minimal. Aviation experts predict that pilot fatigue will cause a major accident within the next 5 years unless systematic changes are implemented. Accident probability. Statistical models show fatigue-related accidents are not just likely, they're inevitable. Scale prediction. The next fatigue-related crash will likely involve a wide-body aircraft with 300-plus passengers. Investigation response. Only after a major tragedy will regulators consider meaningful reform. Industry denial. Airlines will continue blaming pilots rather than addressing scheduling practices. The aviation industry is playing Russian roulette with passenger safety, and the chamber isn't empty. Until airlines prioritize safety over profits, passengers must protect themselves. Morning flights. Choose flights during pilots' natural awareness periods. Avoid red ice. Late-night flights have the highest fatigue risk. Direct routes. Minimize exposure to tired pilots on multiple-leg journeys. Airline research. Some carriers have better fatigue management than others. Stay alert. If you notice pilot errors or erratic behavior, document and report it. Airlines actively resist fatigue solutions because they would cost money. Scheduling changes. Longer rest periods would require more pilots and higher costs. Route modifications. Shorter duty days would reduce aircraft utilization rates. Hotel upgrades. Better crew rest facilities would increase operational expenses. Pilot hiring. Addressing fatigue requires hiring more pilots, increasing labor costs. Every fatigue solution reduces airline profitability, so they choose to gamble with passenger lives instead. The pilot fatigue crisis cannot continue indefinitely. When a next major accident occurs, and it will, the aviation industry will face a reckoning that could have been prevented. Until then, every flight carries the risk that your pilot is fighting sleep while fighting to keep you alive. The next time you board an aircraft, remember that the greatest danger isn't mechanical failure or weather. It's the exhausted human being trying to land 200 tons of metal while struggling to stay awake. 67% of pilots admit to falling asleep during your flight. The other 33% are lying.